Well, with no further ado, we're going to bring in our guest, Jay Dyer. He's an author, comedian, and now quite an analyst. He hosts the 4th Hour of InfoWars, and now he's joining us here on the agenda.
It's a day I think many of us are trying to just weave through the various plots of disinformation that have been set.
Look, when something like this happens, I start just gathering information, everything. We need to just get all, because sooner or later things are going to disappear, narratives are going to change, things are going to be erased. So it's just like gather everything now and kind of weed through it and see what it is. And when we had the thought of having Jay on, well, this didn't transpire. The shooting had not happened. So we are going to talk to him about predictive programming. But this is actually perfect because we're in the middle of something that could have been predictive. And we've been programmed to believe narratives as we, the collective, not me and you or Jay, because we've seen through this. But yeah, Jay, first of all, what are your thoughts? Just give us kind of the breakdown of what you think, what your analysis is on everything.
Well, I did an interview with Roger Stone for the 4th Hour of Alex Jones about 6 months ago exactly. And we batted around the possibilities of what they would roll out as the election drew near. And we felt like one of the cards would definitely be a potential assassination attempt. And of course, that's obviously, I think, what we saw the other day. There's a lot of questions about the event. We've seen already 2 witnesses come forward saying that they had alerted the police. We've seen multiple former CIA people from the Secret Service noting that it's very bizarre that you wouldn't have the most obvious location for somebody to perch themselves to be checked. And so that, according to former CIA analyst Larry Johnson, suggests either willful complicit planning, perhaps, or just insane levels of negligence. Maybe we have too much DEI. We've got too many FUPA-gunted women out there trying to be Secret Service agents. I don't know, but
yes, always look at.
I don't even know.
That was all.
I'll fill you in. This guy, yes, he doesn't have that mindset of me and you, Jay. But yes, I'll fill.
Probably
you in.
can't talk about that on your show.
No, you can't.
No, it's raw, truthful here. I just don't know what FUPA is.
Yes,
but I mean, a FUPA could take. It probably could have taken a few of those bullets, I guess, to protect Trump.
Okay, I think I got that.
Yes, it's a frontal area of
upper area.
Yeah, upper, yes. So let's get into kind of this this discussion of predictive programming then, and what the reason we had you on was because in Hollywood we see these things, and you've written 2 books about it, and how can you relate that to this? Is there anything that you've seen? Should we have seen this coming? We're going to talk about these Illuminati cards that came out in 1994 that are very eerie. Let me put this question to you because I'm very curious how you see it. Do we live in a world of life imitating art, or is the art imitating the life? Which how do you weigh that?
Yeah, I've been asked that many times since I wrote the first book, and I think it's a symbiotic relationship between both. So you're going to have influence from the world of art, and then art influencing, the real world, back and forth. I do think there's a lot of key, films that have kind of pointed at this sort of a scenario. There's the Parallax View, which has Warren Beatty back in the 1970s kind of being a mind-controlled patsy for a political assassination at a rally. We have, I think, Stephen King's Dead Zone with Christopher Walken. Wow. Right? You've got Walken predicting through premonitions that somebody might engage in a assassination attempt against a politician. There's the Marky Mark movie, what's it called, Shooter, where he's a patsy. And a lot of these, I think, pull from probably the narrative around Oswald as a patsy and not the actual planner and, mind behind the JFK operation. And I think, most Americans nowadays have already, through polls, admitted that they don't believe the official story of the JFK event. There were subsequent inquiries after the time of the Warren Commission. There was going to be a whole other commission that got shut down because information had come to light that there were certain organized crime figures who had been cheering on the fact that the Kennedys had been taken care of. So I think people kind of are figuring out that a lot of what we've been told probably isn't the real true story. And at times that's reflected in fiction, but also fiction does seem to curiously have that predictive quality or feature. And that's kind of what I investigated in my books. Was it's not totally, my books aren't totally dedicated to predictive programming, but it's a big part of what I talk about, because in some cases I think there's coincidence, dates that come up in movies and this kind of stuff. But in other cases, I do think there is a pattern and a real technique of perhaps softening up the public to ideas that you want to ease them into or inculcate them with, ideas relating to the acceptance of technology, the acceptance of propaganda. Even at a really kind of basic level, probably people are familiar with product placement. I mean, product placement is not exactly predictive programming, but it gives us a window into the way that, companies might pay to have subliminal messaging even, or overt messaging to push an agenda. And likewise, the government, by the way, just last point here, there was a FOIA request some years back. I put it in my second book, where they had declassified several thousands of pages of documents actually relating to intentional propaganda that various government and intelligence agencies had paid for in countless TV shows going back several decades. And this included TV shows as innocuous as Cupcake Wars, where basically the military had paid to have, positive military messages, recruitment messages. The CIA obviously has done this for a long time as well to influence Hollywood. Going all the way back to the OSS was very intimately involved in helping directors like John Ford win an Oscar. So that's the predecessor to the CIA. So this is a long, fascinating relationship. It's a rabbit hole I tumbled down in grad school that I didn't expect to be so vibrant, I guess you could say.
So one thing is we tend to look at these things through the lens of evil, because a lot of these things are them projecting what their plans are for us, per se. The movie Utopia, we cut a trailer to it for Died Suddenly because it was basically the same premise. And I didn't even know about the film at the time, and co-director Nick pointed that out. It's eerily similar to a madman wanting to sterilize the world through a vaccine.
The component of the mockery of the victim is a show of macabre arrogance when done in a veiled or symbolic fashion, and eliciting no significant response of opposition from that victim is one of the most efficacious techniques of psychological warfare.
Your father created a world-changing, not world-ending, world-changing, world-improving omnivirus.
The Event 201 scenario is fictional.
Created a panic, and now everybody's begging for the vaccine.
No. Demanding it with all the entitlement of a first world country.
Yes. And now we have exactly what we want. Hundreds of millions of Americans lining up, offering us their arms, and letting us give them our creation.
I'm pretty sure when every vaccinated person starts dying, they'll trace it back.
What we are doing is far bigger than death. Tell me this. What have you done today to earn your place in this crowded world?
We've got to stabilize the population.
So what's wrong with the population? I mean,
we're too many people.
That was the amazing epiphany we had. We didn't have to kill to accomplish our goal.
Which is what?
We intend to stop human reproduction for 3 generations. Busy, endless global assembly line of babies will grind to a halt.
You're sterilizing people?
Uh-huh. In the first 5 years, we'll start to see major birth rate declines as teenagers vaccinated today hit their childbearing years.
I've been doing high-risk obstetrics for 43 years, and I've seen death and destruction like I've never seen before. 1,200-fold increases in menstrual abnormalities.
Japan's Prime Minister has warned that the declining birth rate is putting the future of the country at risk.
You're controlling the future of human civilization.
100 years ago, the global population was 1.7 billion. 2011, It reached
7 billion.
global warming, mass extinctions, food, water shortages. All these problems can be boiled down to one thing: overpopulation.
You can't just decide people won't have babies because...
I can and I did.
And it is an ancient rule of both the moral and the common law that silence connotes assent. They brag to us about what they've gotten away with, and we're thrilled by it. That's our only response. It's thrilling. That, and the wait for the next thrill. This is collective suicide, of course.
How much as a fellow Christian can you think maybe that God is allowing us to peek inside of this and to maybe give us clues, right, in the divine intervention of foreshadowing some of this thing so we can like warn the public?
There is something to that. I think that's perhaps divine providence, or maybe even you could say a kind of spiritual clairvoyance, Holy Spirit kind of giving people premonitions. A classic example of this would be the famous Orthodox Christian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky. He wrote a book called The Possessed. It's also alternately titled Demons. And in that book, this is a few decades before the Bolshevik Revolution, when the radical Marxist socialists basically killed what would eventually be 60 or so million people. And one of the characters in the novel says that they will have to bring about the revolution on a giant mountain of millions of skulls. So it kind of predicts this coming, bloodbath revolution. Other things that Dostoevsky wrote, but probably his most famous section would be the chapter Grand Inquisitor, where he predicts a kind of a massive falling away in the church, particularly the Roman Catholic Church in that example. And so I think that sometimes fiction can just have that unique quality of being kind of prophetic, and other artworks as well. I don't want to restrict it to just, authors or novelists, but there's also in the history of film and novels as well, because a lot of, for example, intelligence writers, they'll take the stories that they learn in the real world and then they'll go and put it into fictional film accounts. Sure. And so you have, stories that spies would write. For example, I wrote my master's, I did my master's work on James Bond and Ian Fleming, and a lot of Ian Fleming's real world operations he would put into his Bond stories and kind of change the details a little bit, kind of make it into something kind of a little cartoonish and ridiculous. But there's a lot of truth in those. For example, you mentioned the idea of a sort of a scientific madman trying to, cleanse the earth and repopulate it. And that's kind of the plot of Moonraker. In the novel, it's a guy who wants to get revenge on England for World War II, and he's a National Socialist minded person. His name is Hugo Drax. He's kind of the Bond villain who wants to depopulate. He wants to do a great reset on the West in revenge. Now, in the movie version of it, they make it very kind of Star Wars-y with Bond being up in space and all that. And they actually make the villain in Moonraker into somebody who wants to not just cleanse the earth and depopulate it, but repopulate it with his own offspring.
Like
so if you, I was going to say exactly like Epstein. Yeah, it's like Epstein got his idea from Moonraker or something,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. And crazy as me and Edward, we were in New Mexico the day Epstein killed himself, supposedly, and to interview Congressman McCloskey. Yeah. So Congressman McCloskey had a little bit too much to drink, and we was like, we can't interview him today. So me and Edward, we went over to Zorro Ranch, and we went 2 miles through a desert, up his hill, and we went on the Zorro Ranch property the day that he had killed himself. And you can just feel, have you ever been somewhere where you just feel like a heaviness? Yeah.
It was a dark place.
You could feel it. We were on ground, and the ground felt like it felt.
It was like a cemetery,
I felt like there were people buried in this beautiful, lush thing. But I flew a drone into the thing, and it was a surreal moment. But there you go again, where maybe he didn't have Moonraker on his repeat and got the idea, but that same, I would say, maybe not demonic presence, but that oppression, that same kind of whatever that is that wants to push those ideas and move in our world. They gravitate to these people, and you see it in film, and you see it with Kubrick, in a lot of his work. But pertaining to this, so we look at. I got to ask you this too, because this is like the cliche thing with The Simpsons. Have you done? What's your thought about The Simpsons? Is it just random things they get right, and if they do get these things right, where does it come from? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the best explanation for that is kind of what I was mentioning a second ago, which is a lot of people who worked in intelligence, then they go and they write novels, they write fiction, and they write screenplays. And this goes back, it's a long tradition going back to what British intelligence operatives would do. And they would do this because in the UK, they have a little bit more stricture on what they can and can't say after they have that service of time in the government. So a lot of times because the Official Secrets Act, they can't talk about what they did. So they just write these stories into fiction. And a lot of classic British writers, famously, that we know of, that are famous, like Graham Greene or John le Carré, these characters, they were famously British intelligence operatives. So the same idea goes on, I think, with American cinema as well, where a lot of people that formerly worked in the CIA will write screenplays, or they'll go and consult in Hollywood and so forth. So that's, I think, part of the source of it. And in the case of The Simpsons, I think what's going on is that a lot of those examples, if you dig into them, a lot of them are kind of coincidental, but some of them do seem to be pretty odd and prophetic. And I would say that the reason for that might be that the writers and some of the writers and producers that have been there for a long time come out of Evergreen College. And Evergreen College is a pretty famously known kind of CIA-connected school. So my guess would be that people have kind of inside information that they then seed into the fiction that they write.
Or it's, are you familiar with the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon? It's called a frequency illusion.
I know about that group, yeah.
Where you like, say you want a Volvo, and then you just start seeing Volvos everywhere. We tend to want to see conspiracy a lot of times, like what's happening now. That poor woman who was like, she's like, pick up her phone, like now the manhunt is for this woman.
Well, it does. I mean, you studied psychological warfare at graduate school, Jay, so maybe you can speak to this, is that part of the way to manipulate the public is also diversions. There's all these little rabbit holes that are people being sent down. Like, again, the video that Matt is talking about, this woman you're seeing on screen here, they can't even really make out what she's doing, but they say, oh, look, she's making a smirk or something like this. Look, at least from my perspective, looking at that, it's thought maybe she didn't even know that, like, there was a shot that had gone out yet. I mean,
because
the chaos of it, right?
We've been to 20 of these things covering them. I feel safe there because it's so well, like, secured. When we checked our baggage in the morning, the dogs, they sniffed it. I was very secure when I was there. Did I think something could happen? I thought maybe someone could rush him, make a knife or some blunt object.
The shooter, they're claiming, took the shot and took several shots, the president and the rally. They're saying that he was inside the inner cordon. Like, it's within 400 meters, or 400 feet, rather, of the president. Mm-hmm. And first of all, that area, it's so secure. Like, you can't walk across a field with a rifle. Definitely can't go up onto a building, the nearest high-rise building, in relation to where President Trump was speaking, without there being a huge flurry of officers and officials seeing
especially on points of vantage that a sniper might use. That's what's so crazy. And that we have so much. It's like, this is amazing because before in the 60s, we had the Zapruder film. Right? That's it. We were searching and we had one thing and they even spliced it. And like, now we have all these angles and we're piecing together, and now the narratives get spun. And now it's like, how can we shape the narrative maybe to divert what the actual story is? So we're trying to piece all this together.
And look, you try to look at the facts, right? Because is this true? Is one of the ways to beat the propaganda, Jay, is to try to really hone in on the things which are verifiable.
Yeah, see,
right?
Yeah.
And then we can argue with there. I mean, one of the things I think Laura Ingraham was pointing this out, and at this point, it's a confirmed fact that Quantico has the shooter's phone. They're claiming they can't break it, they can't get into it. Yet they've already concluded that he was a lone gunman. He worked by himself, and how could they possibly have concluded?
I have a question for Jay for this. So me and Ed, we've traveled a lot together. We were in upstate New York, and we just said, let's go to Sandy Hook, because I wanted to see the route that Adam Lanza would took, right? So we go there, and we drive, and me and him are driving looking for the house. And we're in his neighborhood, beautiful neighborhood.
Houses,
And we're driving up and down. We can't find it. We see this is the address. The house was bulldozed and this led overgrown weeds. They didn't make another house on it.
They didn't sell it.
Didn't sell it.
Just let it go back to nature. That's what a passerby, a neighbor, told
in the
us.
middle of a neighborhood, right? So, on this vein, on this whole thing, where are you at? What is your initial thoughts?
Because Sandy Hook was trending.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's another. Sandy Hook was trending. There's a reason why, right?
Well, the first thing that's odd is that suddenly, at least from the left perspective, now you can question events and say that they're staged. So, the left and the mainstream media has browbeat everyone for a long time that you can't question these kinds of events because it doesn't fit the narrative, of course, that the system, the establishment wants. So, but now you can, and now you're supposed to question this because it doesn't fit into the idea that Trump would be genuinely persecuted and that they might try to take him out. No, but again, we've been talking about this, Alex, Roger Stone, Tucker, myself, many people have been saying that it's pretty obvious. I don't even think there's any special, prognostication involved. And I think everybody realized that if Trump continued down the route of, making all of these anti-establishment statements and whatnot, that they might resort to something like this. And it looks like if the lawfare, the legal attacks didn't work, this might be a final resort. I think that's pretty obvious that that's what's going on. And, as Alex has pointed out, they're going to continue to try to probably go after Trump. So it's not like everybody's kind of celebrating, which is fine, but I mean, they're going to try again. I mean, it's not like they're going to just let all this go.
Right? And I think we all feel like, that's we've all thought that, right? Because they unleashed the virus. Like, I believe, COVID was a coup to get mail-in ballots, usurp the system. Okay, then why? What are they afraid of? Because Trump's been in office. He didn't lock anybody up. The world didn't come crashing down. He gets a second attempt at it. What's the fear then?
Yeah, and I don't have any problem. I mean, I'll have criticisms of Trump as well.
Sure.
I think the issue is that both of the people that, for example, came out with the UK think tank, I think the Integrative Initiative or whatever it was called, that came out with the story of Russiagate, P-gate, all that nonsense. They said in some of their white papers that the effect that the audience of Trump has is to awaken to things much quicker than any other leader or group. So it's not even necessarily Trump himself, but they're worried that the Trump audience, the Trump, that the information circulates so quick and then people wake up even quicker. I mean, Noah Yuval Harari said that they would have to do anything they could to stop another Trump administration because the, quote, global world order would be in collapse.
And if it happens, it is likely to be the kind of like the death blow to what remains of the global order. And he says it openly.
Well, then you answer part of your question, though, too. I think maybe that is one of the things that they fear, again, having someone that you can speculate about President Trump's motives, the things he has going for him, but I think, again, he did get shot this past week, and he definitely was being prosecuted. So, as you kind of mentioned, Jay, this man doesn't have a lot left. That if he were to just drop out or if he were to be bought and paid for in this manner, they've already kind of treated him as an enemy they would kill. And secondly, they also see him, I think, as he's a bullhorn for the public.
I like that. I agree with the populist thing. We saw it in France.
Yeah.
How quick that turned around from a party that hadn't even been established, and they were able to stop that, right?
Even if Trump, is again not a perfect candidate, he still represents, as we said, the population in Middle America who they hate. So the overall uniparty establishment hates Middle America. They hate the Bible Belt. They hate the South with a passion. And I think we saw that with the reactions with a lot of the leftists after this event, pretty much cheering it on, wishing that they had been, that the shooter had been successful. And you can tell that this seething sort of soy rage that they have is the desire to kill the rest of us. And my concern is that that's the kind of spirit, the kind of attitude that you see in a population before something like a Bolshevik revolution, before something like, a potential civil war kind of psyop that they might want to kick off. So my concern would be that a lot of this is intended to kick off a quote civil war. We saw the recent Alex Garland film that came out that was, I think, a lot of propaganda, civil war. There have been many other films pushing this. Obama's produced Leave the World Behind.
Leave the World.
Look, I got my wife Mike, my wife Big Mike. Okay.
But we talked about this, right? About this predictive program. Why would Obama get right into a Netflix contract? There's so much power there, right? With any documentary that comes out on, because that's my forte, is when it goes to Netflix, that's where they put their official narrative. The Flight 57 or whatever, or the 9/11 or the Sandy Hook documentary. They pump out the documentary because then people will be like, "Well, I saw the documentary, and that's just how it is."
Well, it's more powerful, isn't it? It's actually more powerful in all the political positions.
Well, look, what died suddenly, that the thing was so powerful is because people got to see things that the mainstream was showing them, or the narrative that they're being fed, and they actually got to see real life horror film come to life.
Well, Jay, you I would say, were among the few that actually predicted in a way that the elite would go to this extent, try to kill President Trump. They would actually make a shot at his life. Do you think they're going to try this again? Is this, at this point, because it's a failed assassination, let's just call it what it is right now, a failed assassination, there's going to be a grand inquiry, an investigation, probably a grand cover-up. Will they try it again? Or do you think President Trump is going to respond in a way to this that he's actually going to tone down a lot of the things which led them to think that he's going to threaten their lives and their power?
Well, if we look at the past scenarios, this would kind of be reminiscent of the Reagan attempt, right? Because Reagan was speaking about the Council on Foreign Relations, the global elite, the steering committees above government that are the real power structure. And a lot of people think that Bush Sr., the Bush crime family, that was who might have had a whole hand in a role in that warning, you could say. So if the attempted hits don't work, then they function as pretty powerful warnings. And so I would say, yeah, and I agree with Alex that, if that doesn't work, then they'll move to something else like, poisoning or some, truck bomb or something like that. Could definitely be.
Don't you believe that that would be creating a mortar of like the high, that would even, if they're trying to avoid this populist uprising, or do you think they would want to just go chaotic?
No, I don't think they are trying. Oh, I see what you're saying. I think that, they weren't concerned about creating a martyr 2 days ago. So, I think they think that either they think that they could have put in, Nikki Haley or somebody else in Trump's place, or they want to create some kind of civil war uprising scenario, which they think they could clamp down and pretty much crush the populist movement. Again, there were similar patterns to this at the time of Reagan, at the time of Barry Goldwater, where candidates were beginning to question the global institutions of power. They weren't getting everything right. It wasn't perfect. But then you have these kinds of big moves like this that try to shut it all down and try to scare everybody. The same thing was happening in the late 80s and early 90s there was a rise of populism and patriotism. And the Oklahoma City bombing event shut all that down.
Now, we know Trump had the FBI wiretaps. We know that the three-letter agencies, they were pissed at him. We've never seen such a deliberate attack on a candidate that then wiretaps and all these things, these dossiers. How much danger are we in this country specifically, that we're allowing these agencies that produce MK Ultra? And is this maybe where we need to look at who the true culprit is in this?
Yeah, I think there's an embedded breakaway security establishment that works for the corporate banking elite that run the West. It's that simple. That's who it is. And so it's not the CIA doesn't run everything, but they're kind of like the worker bees that do a lot for this establishment. They were set up by this establishment. The British intelligence operatives that helped set up the OSS and CIA are the worker bees for the Rose, Rothschild, Milner, Fabian elite that were, the founders of the Royal Institute for National Affairs, and that's the basis for the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, etc. So these institutions are all Fabian in their ethos explicitly, and they have an internationalist bent. That doesn't mean that neoconservatism isn't also part of it. They'll work with the neoconservatives who are basically just reformed Trotskyites anyway. So they're all part of the kind of a same monopoly capital Fabian structure, and they want to impose a new type of technocratic governance. And that's why you mentioned like MK Ultra, that kind of stuff. If you go into the history of MK Ultra, it actually transitions away from drug research and that kind of stuff into transhumanism. Sure. It becomes MK Surge, MK Delta. It turns into implantable chips, nanotech. Basically, what they do at like DARPA. So that's all public information. So yeah, that's why ultimately this relates to things like the Great Reset, because the Great Reset was about kind of rolling out or attempting to roll out or testing the emerging technocratic landscape that they want to present to everybody. That's why Klaus's book, Fourth Industrial Revolution, the last third of that whole book is about Skynet and basically the giant AI control grid. So that's the ultimate goal and everything.
We look out for the EMFs and the grid we're on, and when that goes, he's predictively programming that this will happen. A cyber attack, as he somewhat famously said,
of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
Well, you mentioned those cards.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those Illuminati cards. Yeah, I mean, I don't put a whole lot of stock in the cards. It's not like David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski and Klaus are all sitting there with like the card deck in there.
It is strange. That Trump card.
I'm going to throw down the assassin card.
Read the card with
the so we have this card. It's up on screen here. Enough is enough. So we're showing this side by side. It's eerie how this photo on the card, which was picked in at least 1994, it could be as far back as 1975, but this picture looks a lot like President Trump's photo in 2011, as you're seeing on screen. And it says on here, at any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day.
Bro, I mean, like, I'm sorry. I'm just like, when there's smoke, there's fire around this. And I know this gets into woohoo and all that, but it is real.
Is it possible the person that created the card deck was like communing with spirits? And then like,
I think we interrupted Jay into this. I want to hear. Sorry.
Yeah, so by what I recall, many years ago, Alex interviewed somebody involved in the creation of the card deck, somebody connected to Steve Jackson, who's the guy that created the card deck. And I think that the answer is pretty clear that these people had at some level, I think tied to, LaVey's Church of Satan. Yeah, I'm not saying that was Steve Jackson himself. I don't remember exactly. But I don't think that the LaVeyan Satanism is actually involved in real, like they don't believe in an actual, they're not theistic Satanists, they're more atheistic. But it doesn't matter because, again, I think that even that entity probably has had pretty close connections to the CIA as well over the years. The CIA usually wants to be interested in and have connections to every cult, every movement, every religious organization out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think that whoever was creating the cards understood the world well enough to know that these cards can be played. And that's, when I was talking to Roger Stone a few months ago, and we were talking about this, we were speaking of it as if it's a card deck that you can throw the cards down. We were referring to the Illuminati card deck as a joke, saying that you could throw down the assassination card, throw down the pandemic card, throw down the banking crisis collapse card, throw down the cyber attack card. So yeah, they can throw down any of these cards.
I think as we talk about predictive programming, I think they do in a sense do that. Event 201 was basically the exact war game of what we saw transpire a month later. In October they did it. Now we're going to go into another war game with the bird flu in October. So expect another round of what we just went through.
Well, I think to what, Jay, you were talking about earlier with this advent of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we have advanced AI, neural AI networks. I've long wondered if, because we talk about the war games. What do war games do? That produces data. Lots of, even this past week, seeing how people responded to President Trump's potential assassination. They got to see a lot of things, how people are going to respond, what they're going to say, how they're going to act. And I think that data it possibly gets fed into a supercomputer.
Well, there's no doubt.
Absolutely.
The supercomputer would be able to tell the elite.
That's what AI is. It's just algorithms. That's all it is. And
I think that's what.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
But at a super level, we know that the Utah computing system in Utah, right? The houses all the storage.
Yeah, it's
just being fed to. They've already admitted this, that they can shape through media our reality to project what we'll do, right? In a 80%, 60%. They know they can have a good. That's what social media is. Social media is nothing other than seeing what our reaction to things are and how susceptible we are to narratives, false stories that lead them down there. COVID was the bellwether for this, to actually have people walk down aisles because it had a arrow on it. That's where we're at. You think like they laughed at that. They were like, wow, we're more ahead of this than we thought because we've dumbed down this public so much.
Yeah, it was all those things. And, you know, the SPARS document was even more arguably prophetic than even Event 201. But there was a whole series of these. I did a really deep dive on all the different documents and war games that came out. There was Cladex, there was Crimson Contagion, there was you know, Event 201, there was the SPARS document, on and on and on. And this makes sense too when you study you know, things like 9/11 or the London 7/7 event drills. They don't just provide information, research, and data. They also can provide cover for the actual event at times too. So I think you're right. To Jade Helm, if you remember, in my opinion, has always been that Jade Helm was a lot of research and data to see how people would react in this kind of a you know, big event scenario, kind of continuity of government collapse scenario. Rex 84 going all the way back to the Reagan era. There have been many of these drills and preparation scenarios for a mass event of some kind. You know, one of the things I do is lecture through the writings of these very people. So, you know, a lot of people don't know that most of these power elite publish books, and they basically say what their worldview is, what their plans are. Now, maybe not every single operation is written about or planned that we know of or is mentioned in their books. But when we read Brzezinski, when we read Rockefeller, when we read the Huxleys, Bertrand Russell, Jacques Attali, Arthur Kessler, Carol Quigley, I mean, on and on and on. I've lectured through about 50 or 60 of these texts. We see how open they are, and they don't really seem to care that people know what they're up to or what their plans are, and they're very candid about it. So, yeah, if they openly write about it and it's kind of hidden in plain sight, so to speak, it's not surprising that they would have public meeting places where they go and discuss these things. Like,
yeah, they used to keep them in the shadows, though, right? Now it's very, like, WEF is a very open place. Before, you know, I did a deep dive and in my film and through the Club of Rome and where the genesis of that was, but it was always depopulation. I mean, that's always what it was over about. It was always too much of us. And if they would promote their plans through an ice age, so be it. Promote them through climate change, global warming, so be it. They always can kick the can to whatever agenda they want and whatever way they want to push it. And never before did these people, when they were conceiving these plans, who knows how long ago it was, that an internet would be invented where we'd be able to talk with someone like Jay in another state and start to think about this and come up with our counter thought about what these oligarchs and world elites are trying to do to us.
Certain individuals, there was a man on a podcast in England was describing the way the world, like especially the neocons, think. They justify a lot of their actions, traitors' actions at that, and that people like you and I, we just can't be trusted to be able to go through information because we're so easily manipulated. Like, that's one of the excuses.
Well, you don't have a standard degree. Well, he does. He has all the degrees. He went through he went through the proper channels. But me, where I don't have the degree.
Oh, I didn't finish. I left.
Okay, sure.
He threw the degree, yeah.
yeah. But
I quit. I thought it sucked.
There you go. But it's something amazing that we get to, like, that's the play they did. So my thing is, they have to do something with the internet. There's too much freedom and like Elon grabbing Twitter at the time. That's a blessing, right? To think that. But then I think, well, what if they're just like categorizing and putting everybody in their little thing because they ultimately have that, what is that? thought crime come up, you know? I mean, if we're looking at films and we're seeing this predictiveness of it, which they actually talk about and have arrested people with that already in other countries, then are we just feeding the beast to come to our own demise and put handcuffs on us? I don't know, but I know I want to keep talking about it. And I know I want to keep talking to people like Jay and fight these bastards who are doing this, because they are evil and they hate humanity so much that they do these things to us. And for my kids' sake, I'm going to keep doing this. And I champion people like Jay, and I'm glad I can be on his side and talk these things and know that we're doing something at this time, at this moment, than just trying to get paid and live on the beach and just put everything out. This is a real battle, no doubt.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I think, if you look at classic movies in Hollywood that illustrate this point, you could look at something like Gaslight, which is a George Cukor film, where you have the principle of a guy who's really trying to deceive a woman out of her wealth. And he uses all these kind of what you would think would be insane techniques, but they work to drive the woman insane. And it's a really great analogy for the way that the psychopathic system and the elites that you're talking about, the way they relate to us. Just look at them like that psychotic character who's constantly gaslighting and doing all these tricks to try to really, screw up the mind of the public, to really make them pliable and to go along with whatever they want. And we know what they want, which is ultimately massive depopulation. And that would include everything from the messing with our biology, our gender, all the way to, the potentiality of trying to inoculate everybody with something or a pandemic or whatever. All of those things are in the cards, and they'll throw out any of these things because they're committed to that agenda. As you know, if you've studied the Club of Rome and those documents, the Kissinger 2025 report under Reagan, under Carter, Global 2025, that was, Kissinger basically laying out the American government's full adoption of the Malthusian dysgenics agenda. So prior to that, there were very wealthy people in America that had funded and promoted a lot of the dysgenics, eugenics ideology, but it hadn't been adopted as policy really until Kissinger. And Kissinger was doing
Agenda
that.
21, Agenda 2030 is kind of going up that line, right?
Yeah, those are more updated versions of what Kissinger was up to in the 70s, mid to late 70s.
Well, Klaus, that's his protege. Klaus Schwab. Kissinger's protege is Klaus Schwab, which you can see in The Great Reset through Johnny Vedmore's great reporting in that.
I was going to say Vedmore and Whitney Webb have pointed out that was a CIA Harvard project to set up. Klaus.
Speaking with them, I mean, Whitney is just like, and she's such
it's a fire hose of information.
She's a computer, sitting with her for 3 hours is like rapid fire, and you just got to keep going, trying to catch up with her. But two other freedom fighters that are such great allies to have in this. Well, I appreciate your time today, man. I really do. It's great talking to you. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, so I really appreciate your time with us.
Yeah, thank you. And if people are interested in more in-depth analyses of, I think I covered probably 50, 60 different films. You can get Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2 at my website, jasonelsis.com. And I go into quite a bit of depth there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jay. And that's can you say that website one more time for the audience where they can find you?
jasonanalysis.com. That's my website. I have all of my stuff there, my archived lectures and talks, and the Global Elite series that I mentioned. I host the 4th Hour of Alex Jones pretty much every Friday. And then, in the shop, you can get signed copies of my books.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jay, and God bless you. It's an honor to be in the fight with you. Take care.
Likewise. Absolutely.